I think all the speakers are here, so we can start our final session of the day. Thank you so much everybody who is physically here, but please remember we are also live streaming the events and there is a live audience that is joining us. Live audience is also very much encouraged to ask questions via our Slido app, and you can see the information how to log in on the screens. So thank you so much for being us for the session that we titled Towards Tech-Driven Equality. We talked a lot today about how COVID unleashed the innovation. And of course, we all know that some innovation will stick, some innovation maybe disappear, and this is a natural process. So the big questions that we're going to try to address today is how to make sure that innovation keeps happening, that it keeps happening not just in the urban areas, but that is more evenly spread out across countries and across the world. How to make sure that actually everyone can participate in innovation, regardless of where they're located, and how to make sure that people actually have capacity to absorb this innovation. So with me today, I have a fantastic setup of panelists to answer all these questions. From my further right, we have Peter Balik, who is Director at the Department for Innovation, Strategic Investments and Analysis at the Ministry for Investments, Regional Development and Informatization of the Slovak Republic. Welcome, Peter. It's an important ministry, so it has to have a very long name. Yes. Next, we have with us Anna Ajmal, who is Vice Chair, Board of Directors at GLOBSEC, but also member of the JP Morgan Senior Advisory Council for EMEA. Welcome, Basil. And we have with us also Andre Ashland, who is Vice President at G Global Central and Eastern Europe. Welcome, everybody. And I would like to go first to Peter, who is our sole official government representative, and we know that it takes two to tango in everything that we do with technology. So talking about the governmental side, Peter, could you tell us a little bit more? What is the strategy of your government to ensure that the tech-driven growth and prosperity is not only focused and happens in the cities, but is also more evenly spread out across the country?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for having me in this panel discussion. As already has been mentioned, I'm the representative of the Ministry of Investment in Slovakia, which is very active in terms of EU fund allocation, preparation of the new programming period, 21-27 for the new EU funds, but also responsible for regional development, including focus on innovation, as well as the area of support for digitalization and informatization across Slovakia. So we are quite a big ministry in the Slovak system of national authorities. And I would like to start maybe with explaining the situation regarding the innovation policy in Slovakia and how the government looks at this situation currently. We at our department are responsible for the preparation of the strategy for smart specialization. And there was actually an analysis conducted within the remit of this strategy, which said that the innovation system in Slovakia is really significantly fragmented, which means several institutions in the national structure are dealing with innovation. It's our ministry, it's also the Ministry of Education, of course, Ministry of Economy, and there is a lack of coordination happening in terms of discussing and coordinating the spread of innovation and support of innovation in Slovakia. We all know in the Slovak institution that this is an important topic, but with a single voice we are not going to be successful. That's why, and also based on the current initiative in the European Union related to the Recovery and Resilience Plan, there has been a reform presented within this strategic document, the Recovery and Resilience Plan, which aims at reforming the infrastructure, the institutional setup related to innovation, and directly under the Prime Minister's office, there's going to be a new coordination authority established, the Secretariat for Research, Development, and Innovation, whose role will be to hold our hands and take us through the innovation support in Slovakia in a coordinated approach, which will be very important, not only to speak with a single voice outside of our country, but also to know exactly what the strategy of the country is, and trying to complement our activities across several ministries in the area of innovation, digitalization, and informatization. So there's a large challenge ahead of us in Slovakia. It is one of the milestones related to the Recovery and Resilience Plan, which means if we are not going to succeed with this milestone or with this reform, if it is not going to be accomplished, then the investments from the Recovery and Resilience Plan are going to be ceased for Slovakia. So there is quite a pressure on our institutions on preparing and implementing this reform in Slovakia. I don't want to take more time. This is probably one of the largest efforts and initiatives right now happening in Slovakia in terms of trying to embed innovation in our economy. But later on in the discussion, maybe I could relate to some other specific measures and maybe the outstanding situation that Slovakia is dealing with in terms of digitalization.
Thank you so much, Peter. What you're saying is very interesting for several reasons, but I'm amazed to hear that even a small country like Slovakia seems to be struggling with lack of coordination between different agencies, and also for me it's puzzling because sometimes when we talk about innovation, we often hear the more people innovate, the better, and apparently in this case, too many actors don't play together, and then the sum is smaller a little bit than the parts. So we'll be watching carefully your next steps. Thank you so much for outlining them. But now moving to Anna. Anna, I was very pleased to learn that you spent some time in the region, so your comparative perspectives about what works around the world would be very much appreciated. But I want to go to you first with a double-headed question. The first part of it is, how do you approach innovation in MasterCard? Do you have some differentiated approaches, for example, for urban areas and the rural areas? How do you look at this issue comprehensively? And second, if you can already give us some taste of the practical solutions that in your experience have worked.
Sure, thank you. So I think a strategy, whether it's for urban areas and rural areas, is similar. The solutions are different. A strategy is based on partnerships and collaboration. We at MasterCard truly believe that in today's world, where the barriers to switching are low and the industries are blurring, there are telcos who are entering into financial services, there are retailers who are entering into financial services. There's so many fintechs coming up, so the collaboration between different players in the ecosystem is key to drive innovation. And I think that's the heart of our innovation strategy. Now, when we come to rural areas, of course the solutions are different, but let me tell a story first, which I think will bring our strategy to life a little bit. There's a girl, and her name is Nolan. She's from Rwanda, from the eastern province. And her story is famous because she went on from a street vendor to a factory owner, and her success is called a sweet potato success. She dropped out after high school because she could not afford education. There were no education grants available, so she could not study further. She had to feed herself and her family, so she started doing farming. She grew sweet potatoes. She made fries out of them, and she did everything herself, from farming to cutting the potatoes to making the fries to targeting, which was the motorists and the school-going children. Until one day she, through an entrepreneur exchange program, visits a factory and realizes that the factory is selling biscuits from the sweet potato peels, which she has been throwing. She learned baking, and she started making those biscuits. Long story cut short, at the age of 28, she became a factory owner. She today supplies biscuits to restaurants, supermarkets, and she is an example of a very successful entrepreneur. So technology and innovation is not about only new gadgets and new applications and infrastructure. It's also about connecting people to the possibilities that exist. It's about opening up the world through awareness and education, and just by connecting and showing them that the possibility exists. And that is something that MasterCard is very keen on. We have made a global pledge to bring 1 billion people into the digital economy by 2025. And that's where a lot of our work with our partners go on. So just to give you an example, in Africa, 625 million people do not have access to electricity. And I believe, I've lived in Europe and I've lived in Asia and the US, problems of rural areas may be different, but the fundamentals are the same. It's the lack of access, the affordability, the scalability of technology solutions. It's the lack of inclusion. So while solar energy has emerged out to be a very efficient source of power, the upfront investment required is huge, which makes it impossible for the mass to use it. So we developed a solution where, together with our QR payment code, it is a pay-as-you-go initiative. So as opposed to paying a lump sum or a monthly bill or paying for the entire equipment, you only pay on a daily basis as you consume. This brings affordability, it brings scalability. Another example where we have worked with Ministry of Education in Uganda and UNICEF is to make education accessible. It's the right of every kid to go to school, and many parents and caregivers are unable to send kids for education because the fees have to be paid in lump sum. Together with our payments and our capability of pay-as-you-go, those fees can be split into small amounts and makes education affordable for parents. Another example I could give of our partnership was with Airtel in Africa, where we brought in a telco and a microlender Asante together with MasterCard to make devices available at an affordable way. And this also impacts the SME, which are the backbone of any economy, because once SME have the device, which means they are included into the digital world, now we have the data, now we can say how they're paying for the device, they pay their suppliers through the virtual cards, we can say the supplier payment history, and when all this data is shared with the micro-lending institutions, these SMEs can then be granted credit. So it's a very, very innovative way to include them into the financial ecosystem. So those are some of the examples, and again, just to summarize, the heart of our strategy is partnerships and collaboration, bringing in different players of the ecosystem, be it telcos, be it retailers, be it financial institutions, digital giants together to make solutions that meet the needs of the sector.
Thank you so much, Anna, also for the amazing story of the individual. I'm still trying to visualize a farmer who actually transforms herself into the factory owner. Maybe she could be our speaker in the next session as a perfect illustration of it. But thank you also for bringing in the person into the gadget world and making sure that we talk also about connecting what already is out there and making sure that as many people as possible have access to these possibilities. And I'll switch to Andrea now for another business perspective. Anna was mentioning that today the industries are blurring, that they're venturing into different areas. And so this is exactly what I think about when I think about GE, because you're covering so many issues. Can you give us a little bit of your perspective on how you approach tech-driven innovation and growth, and especially how it all connects to the urban and rural developments?
Exactly, thank you so much. I'm really appreciated to be here, and I cannot not continue, what you started, because I think it's very important. If you see a position of a high-tech industrial company who produce machines to produce electricity, produce grids, and also not just renewables, but also gas, also nuclear, and parts for that, and also aviation engines, which is really making transport, connection between the people. But also we have healthcare as well. And pandemic was a very good lesson for all of us regarding the innovation, the speed of the innovation, and immediate applications we need. A couple of examples what I would like to tell you about how. I think the most important what we need to see this is access, as you said, but not just access, the cost and the quality. Because the problem is between urban and rural area is that how we can find a solution, what is the cost, what the society needs to pay for that, and the quality will be the same, exactly, or not. And you know that we have very big challenges what we are facing now. If you just think about it, the shortage of doctors, teachers, quality teachers on the rural areas, IT experts, who can fix the things. Parallel with the problems that still in the rural areas are not optical covers, sometimes, the broadband internet is a challenge. But electricity is a challenge. That, as you said, that one of the biggest problems in Africa, in the rural area, that there is no electricity. And this kills everything. If you have not a stable system, electricity system, and if you have no connections between cities and rural areas, just last week I would like to refer back a very nice Central European initiative, which is between Slovakia and Hungary. Now Košice and also Miskolc, it's connected on the motorway. It's very good for the rural area. It's very good for the villages which are on the wall of Slovakia and Hungary as well. But let's come back to the technical solutions. Centralization and decentralization always the two things which is compete each other. Because you can centralize a lot of things. For sure, it's very good for the urban life, but decentralization is really, it's really these solutions, how you can bring access for the people. For example, many of the countries in Central Eastern Europe now centralize healthcare, for example, from diagnostic imaging point of view. Great professional centers are there in the urban area. How the people get access without road, without transportation, because just one bus goes to the city every morning and the other one is coming back because of the cost effectiveness point of view of the local things, and how you can deliver to these people, this part of the society, the access for the quality. For sure, digitalization is the answer. Digitalization is very important, but digitalization needs, first of all, infrastructure. This infrastructure needs to be built. I'm really happy to read, in the Czech, the Slovak, the Polish, and the Hungarian, and all of the other Central European countries, resilience funds plans that this broadband internet is a base for education, for healthcare, for everything. Because this could be a solution. This could be a solution because a nurse can go with a handy ultrasound machines, to pre-check a couple of problems, in an older society who has 50 kilometers from the next hospital. And this can transfer the quality data to the doctor and the telemedicine and more, to access for this type of video doctorship and these type of applications. This could be very helpful. And immediately there is a leapfrog, and the people who had no access for the quality doctor, now they have an access for the quality doctor. Cost-wise, that's great, because the cost to transfer these people into the hospital and transfer back from the state insurance and others is huge. Now, because of the digitalization, these investments, okay, it's a cost, but on the other hand, an operation is much less. Many of these type of solutions are there, but I think that the key now, and as a starting, what I would like to start is really that how you can teach the people to use and utilize the already exist technologies. Basic infrastructure is a question mark. We need to invest more and more and more, and the long-term thinking is needed for that. The second part is, for sure, we need to use and utilize all of the existing opportunities. And the problem is that most of the society, many of the time, for example, digital is the general horizontal solution. The elder society, the young generation is okay, but the elder society and the wide scale of society in Central Eastern Europe has no access, for the broadband internet or for these solutions, no knowledge about it. It's just how does it work, and easy access, and accessibility to do that work on that. And the third one is innovation, that how we can do more simplified way innovation, more need-based type of research and innovation versus spend a long time and without any qualification, we just spend a lot of money, on some research, which is just impact on the very small scale of the society. I will tell you more about this type of programs and initiatives later.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. We seem to have an agreement on the panel that we need to make sure that the access to existing technologies is key, and there should be infrastructure, not just in terms of the physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, but also infrastructure of skills and people who know how to use the technology. But I'm going to go next to Vasil. Vasil, I mentioned that it takes 2 to tango in their technology, public and private sector, but I wanted to ask you about actually expanding the dance pool. Because I know that GLOBSEC recently has launched the initiative which is called the Tech Valley. And at the center of it is the idea that we need also more cross-border cooperation and more regional cooperation. Can you explain to us why you think it is important, and maybe what are some of the practical outcomes that we can gain from such cooperation?
Thank you very much. Switch. Okay, actually, well, the technology works, innovation works. Actually, it's very helpful that there are already these interventions by other panelists because they in a way point to what I want to talk about, which is the fact that the ongoing technological and digital revolution is shaping global environment, shaping Europe. It's changing the structure of different forces. There are some countries which are kind of going behind, falling behind. There are some countries which are moving forward. Nobody would think 20 years ago that Estonia would become one of the leaders of innovation and IT, etc. Some countries, I would say, are kind of not in that. So there are what I would call haves and has-nots of this process of big technological shift and transformation. And when you look at our region of Central Europe, we have very good potential. We have many companies and people who really were able to become global in terms of their presence and their ability to bring innovation, bring products which are competitive globally. But as a region, we are still not there. And there are several reasons. One is that economies of this area, whether it's Slovakia, Czech, or Hungary, or Croatia, these are by themselves very small. They are not interconnected for innovative company in the region to grow and economies of scale are very important. This is very difficult. Although we are talking about EU as a single market, in reality it doesn't work. When you talk to small and medium enterprises, will tell you it's very difficult to work across borders. So there are many impediments in the region for being really an innovative force and hub of innovation in Europe. So the question is, how do you move across and beyond the borders? And how do you give opportunity for innovative people and companies to be able to operate throughout the region and make this region one of the innovative hubs for Europe? And that's where basically this Danish Tech Valley comes. It's an initiative, it's a platform which should provide opportunity for public, private, and social players to work together across borders in this region, which is kind of united by Daniel, but it's in a very broad context. And where most innovative players will be able to combine forces to create value and opportunity and scale to be able to compete at European or global level. To be a little more specific, this is what we are thinking about, and obviously this is something which is still evolving and relatively new, but one level of cooperation is among the universities and R&D centers, because without research and development, and especially applied research and development, it is impossible to bring innovation. So the idea is to bring together the most innovative institutions, research institutions in the region, to work together on some joint projects. And I think one of the previous panels, Vice President of the European Commission, Maroš Šefčovič, mentioned that this region is very weak in utilizing EU instruments which are for research and development. So the Horizon 2020 or the new programs which are for research and development, the utilization by these countries is extremely low. And we have to improve it, and so this requires this type of cross-border cooperation. So bringing the best R&D centers and universities is one area. The other area is area of capital markets. Innovative companies need to grow, they need sources of capital. This has to be cross-border, and we would like to explore the possibility of creating a kind of venture capital fund, which would be cross-border and which would finance innovative companies that would work across borders. And then identify some specific sectors where this can be applied. One is in the battery value chain. We had some discussions today about batteries for electric vehicles as well as for energy storage. And each country in this region can provide some element from the production, development, recycling, which can be part of the kind of regional cross-border value chain for battery production and development and utilization and recycling. And then they are talking about rural areas, and all these countries have problems with rural development. Young people are leaving from rural areas. We are basically dying out of villages. But there are good examples where this is not happening, or there are good practices how to deal with that. For example, in Austria, where they were able to develop ecotourism and agriculture, ecotourism and so on. And the idea is to connect these rural areas in the region to work together and to make sure that rural areas actually become not dying parts of Europe, but actually parts which can grow and generate economic development. So it's very much a kind of bottom-up approach to innovation and economic development, and we believe that this will be something that will benefit the region of this very, very well.
Thank you so much, Vasil. We look forward to work with all of you on the project. And when you were talking about these haves and have-nots, there's another saying now that we have two types of the entities in the world, the hubs and hubs-nots. And of course, the hubs are the ones who are the haves, and hubs-not are the ones who are have-nots. So especially for smaller countries like Slovakia and countries in Central Europe, becoming a hub is more and more important. And I do believe that the Danube Tech Valley can help the region to exactly become the hub and the have. Thank you so much, everybody. We have several questions on Slido. So I will start bringing them in, but please, if you feel at any moment that you want to react of some of the interventions of the previous speakers, please feel free to do so. But I would like to start with a question, and probably we'll go to Peter first. It concerns the worries that people have about technology and technological revolution. And the question is, who are the main losers of technological revolution and what we can do about them? Peter, do you have any thoughts about it?
Yes, sure. I think there should not be no losers in the technology revolution, and this is probably also the role of the government to ensure that there are no losers in this revolution. I have, as I mentioned, a few numbers which might be quite interesting for this discussion. The customer interaction in Europe actually has increased from 2019 to 2020 from 32% to 55% in terms of digitalized customer interaction. In terms of the usage of digital services, these have grown in Europe from 34% to 50%. In between the pandemic and the pre-pandemic period. So we see that there is a clear demand for digitalization and for informatization. In terms of the Slovak starting position, we have released some problems related to disparities in terms of the technology revolution. This is related to the digital literacy of people. 54% in Slovakia of the population have basic digital literacy skills, 27% higher than average, and 19% lower than average. These numbers are actually worsening for the older age groups, especially when we are talking about people who are 65 years older. From this aging population, only 40% of people over 65 years old use internet. And I will also say some solutions that the Slovak government actually has adopted in terms of this particular number related to the digital literacy of seniors. In terms of connectivity, which has also been mentioned, and it is an important issue because it creates the environment where technology can further grow. It is the connectivity and broadband. In Slovakia, 89% of the country is covered by 4G, 76% with slower NGA broadband, and only 47% with ultra-fast broadband connection. So there is a lot to do in terms of achieving also the goals of the European Union to have 100% coverage with ultra-fast broadband by the end of 2030. In terms of some other numbers related to productivity at home office versus work in the regular office, 49% of Slovaks have actually declared that their productivity has not changed. 24% have declared that it has increased during COVID, and 27% have declared that their productivity at home has decreased. And what is some further element of the starting position in Slovakia is digitalized education for pupils. There we see actually quite significant disparities between societal groups, especially when we talk about minorities, the Roma population. There is a clear difference and disparity between the pupils from these mitigated or marginalized groups over the average population. Approximately 128,000 pupils have no access in Slovakia to notebooks or desktops. They were doing their homework during COVID on papers and sending in their homeworks in letters. So there's a clear area or potential for improvement in Slovakia. And in this regard, we have also in the recovery and resilience plan, but also in the new operational program for the new programming period, propose some specific measures that should help mitigate this starting position. So Slovakia is going to invest several hundred million euros into broadband in the new programming period. We are probably talking about 300 to 400 million euro going into broadband. We are also focusing on improving digital literacy among the seniors. As I mentioned, this is the age group which is really showing some areas for improvement. We would like to train with digital skills by the end of 2026 170,000 seniors over 65 years. And we would also like to distribute them with technology gadgets. So this is a specific measure which was actually also approved as part of the recovery and resilience plan. So as of next year, we are starting a huge national campaign devoted for training seniors in elementary and mainly elementary and high schools through the IT teachers which are present on the local and regional level, and they are going to provide some basic trainings for the seniors in terms of how to use technology gadgets like laptops or tablets. And we would like to build on their digital literacy skills with providing them with specific gadgets that they can use with internet connectivity as part of this package, but also access to specialized applications, for instance, consultations with doctors, as has been mentioned. This is important in terms of also decreasing costs for healthcare, but also improving access of elderly to medical help. We would also like to support their socialization across their families, but also across themselves. And last but not least, we would also like to train them in terms of identifying disinformation, because this is also quite an important topic where this particular age group is very vulnerable. So these are some specific measures, activities that our ministry is actually focusing at right now in terms of preparing the implementation. And maybe these are some two particular digitalization related measures that I want to pinpoint, because they're related to connectivity, but they're also related to mitigating the differences in terms of the acceptance of technology across age groups, across societal groups, and also across regions.
Thank you so much, Peter. That's a great example about the absorption and bringing in the human factor. I've always been a great believer in seniors. I think they actually can innovate a lot as well. So I do, Andrea, do you have some specific examples here that you want to jump in with? Because I know you work with healthcare a lot and
Yes, I think that this is very important, you know, that the healthcare and the access to the healthcare. One big challenge in the healthcare, you know, that the usage of the capacities. There are many of the equipments, many of the doctors, many of the nurses, but you know, it's very difficult sometimes to deal with that when exactly the senior person needs to come on Wednesday or Thursday at the morning at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever. Plus, as I said, you know, that the problem is that, for example, in Hungary, that 67 is the average of the family doctors. 67 the average ages of the family doctors. Already more than 1,200 family doctors missed from the practices. Where? On the rural area. What you can do there? Now you travel the people. Travel with the cars and going and back with that cost with everything. You know that is very important to find and figure it out. Applications, as you said, simplified applications. Give for the elderly society applications which are needs just yes, no. Go, no go. This is the problem, that is the problem. Don't forget it that for the elder society, the second one, which is a very big challenge in the area of the healthcare, how we can take care on the dementia with people at home, because the family is already moved because of the schools and because of the work, you know, into the cities. The 60, 70 years old, physically fresh people, mental problems, you know, dementia problems are at home. Nobody takes care of them. How we can take care of them? It needs to be online. You know, the families wants to get an access immediately, get a warning, a red flag that something happened, fall down someone in the room or something like this. What you can do? Huge cost. We can build new infrastructures. There are countries like Ireland. G has a technology now to optimization of the planning, the architecture of the network of the digital broadband digital infrastructure. After the electricity infrastructure, this is the second biggest investment in whole entire island, because many of the islands are there, in Croatia as well, you know, many of the islands are there. How you can provide it? You can use and utilize already existing networks. Labs are everywhere. If the people are living somewhere, most probably in Europe, there are electricity. If there are electricity, there are labs, outside, inside. These labs can communicate to each other. These can transfer the data. These can be accessed, you know, smart accessibility, which can put in the camera into that, CO2 measurement, or in case if an elderly lady or man is lived alone in the room, the lamp can see the movements, and if there are no movements or there is not usual movements are there, you know that immediately it can send the signal. These solutions are there. The most simplified solutions are the good solutions. The good solution means that don't need the intervention of the other people. It just needs to use as simple as it is possible. Just think about telecommunication. The best possible phones for the elderly society when just the numbers are there, a green and a red one. This type of device. Me too. Me too. Maybe it means something. But what I'm going to tell you that this type of solution. Exactly. And this is why you mentioned the innovation hub. We always think about something super scientific. We have G Healthcare has the European Digital Hub in Budapest, based in Budapest. We have 500 software engineers works on a platform Edison, which means, you know, the platform for the startups, for the people who would like to develop something, you know, as an operational system it is. And we have 65 data architects, data scientist people are there. Yes, Central Europe has the biggest talents. Yes, we have amazing research institutes and capabilities and infrastructures. I can tell you that we managed from Budapest with MIT in Boston a need-based research program named Catalyst. And we do it in Europe, Catalyst Europe. And do you know what can I tell you? We are in a much better shape from infrastructure point of view, believe it or not. Why? Because the MIT professor lady always mentioned to us that, wow, you have a university clinic with 32 clinics, with 8 million doctor and patients meeting, and the researcher, the entrepreneur, the startupper, the innovator can go in for free of charge to research. Do you know how does it work between MIT and Harvard? It's every step you need to pay for something that the budget-wise the accessibility-wise for the innovation, we are in a global competitive shape. Together, these countries, with their problems and the already existing infrastructure, we are very well prepared for this type of research. What is needed, more coordination. I fully agree with you that the research institutes, innovation budgets, governments, and the industrials needs to be much more open to collaborate more and more. Very nice what's happening now, but more and more. The second one is that we need to find the way, the most simplified and cost-effective way to spend our tremendous money what we have. Okay, because I remember when I was in PwC 10 years ago, just dreamed about this money what we have now for R&D and innovation in the sector is just dreamed about it. And what about the centralized money utilization? Peanuts. If you see the Eastern European countries, it's just less than 20% from the direct money. I'm stuck here and I could talk about it hours, I'm sorry for that, but...
We will continue over the dinner. Thank you so much, Andreas.
If I can just-
Absolutely.
Yes. Lady first.
So maybe if I can just add 2 points to what Peter and Andrew were saying. And you mentioned at the beginning the question about are there users in technology, right? I love this quote, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So technology is just a means to an end. We have discussed here endless examples how we can use it. I almost see technology as a car without keys. We have to drive this car to the destination, we decide the destination. One thing this pandemic has shown us is how people adapt to technology. I completely agree with what Andre said, it needs to be simple. A very good example is, in Africa, there are more mobile money accounts than bank accounts. There are 225 million bank accounts, but there are 400 million plus mobile money accounts. Why do people use mobile money accounts? It's simple, it's easy, it's intuitive. Sending money back home, sending money to your relatives, paying for utility bills, it's simple and it's easy, it's intuitive, right? So I think as long as technology will always have winners, but it needs to have winning solutions based on the needs, which are very, very simple. When we talk about rural areas, it's not rocket science technology and it's not super complicated needs. So that's why you need to provide those simple solutions that meet the very, very basic needs. And that would be the way to go forward, and the way you can do it is only through partnerships and collaborations. The different entities of the ecosystem need to come together.
I just one point because I think it fits very well and also to what Andrew mentioned, that we have, again, looking at the region of Central Europe, that we have these examples of successes, of very interesting approaches like this MIT and so on. But what worries me is that they are very localized, that they are not really shared throughout the region, and we do not put together forces to utilize these local successes and examples in a broader context. And also we mentioned quite often the money which is available, mostly on the national level, like resilience plans, which takes billions of euros, but they are all national. And I think it's a missed opportunity for Europe and for this region as well, because we are part of Europe, that they are all thinking only national. I mean, obviously we need to focus primarily on the national level because that's responsibility and the money is flowing to the national level, but there is no cross-border element. And I think this is a missed opportunity because it's a lot of money, the money which could be used to bring together these positive examples and opportunities throughout the region, and I hope that this Danube Tech Valley will be something that will also help to mobilize this cross-border cooperation.
Thank you so much, everyone, for these interventions. And this inspired me to ask a little bit different question back to Peter, especially when Amna was talking about the fact that in Africa there are more mobile payments account than bank accounts. And in Central Europe, remember we had this discussion that in many ways we leapfrog the developments from the past, and that's why we have sometimes better card payment system than the United States, who use checks for too long. How do you approach this matter in your governmental thinking? Maybe we should forget about the contemporary broadband infrastructure and start already unveiling the 5G, 6G, 7G, or whatever comes next. Are there steps that you think we can leapfrog and try to focus on some innovative solutions from the future?
Could you please maybe specify?
What I mean is that you made a brilliant presentation about all the necessary steps that the Slovak government is taking. But do you think there's something that we shouldn't worry about too much right now? For example, should we worry about the current internet networks that we have right now? Maybe they're just a thing of the past. Maybe you have in mind some forward-looking future solutions that will revolutionize a little bit the digital system of Slovakia, be it the mobile payments or something that's not conventional already.
Well, yeah, I must say that we have some gaps still in terms of development of basic infrastructure, and this is why Slovakia is still being considered as a cohesion country in Slovakia, and this is why we are still focusing also in the preparation of the new operational program for 21-27 into areas where development has not been reached in a significant or sufficient way in the past. This is related to basic infrastructure when we're talking about roads, connectivity, healthcare infrastructure, etc. So even most of the focus in terms of the investments for the near future will be going into the basic infrastructure, and I think this is also the case in the surrounding countries in the Visegrad 4. But nevertheless, we should also focus on the new technologies and trying to, as you mentioned, leapfrog. However, for that we need a good and flexible legislative environment. And I think this is still a bit of a hassle in the Central European countries to be able to adapt quickly our legislature, which is very often outdated in several areas. So I would prefer, and I would also encourage our government to be flexible in terms of preparing the legislative environment for new technologies. This has been also mentioned in the previous panels. We are talking a lot about hydrogen. We are talking a lot about various technological solutions right now about technology for seniors. But there are still some legislative barriers that are hindering development, and I think this should be the role of the government to focus on good governance and flexible regulation.
Thank you so
Maybe
much.
just on this, one specific example that comes to my mind is, for example, because we spoke about healthcare, about rural areas, and all the people don't have access to healthcare locally because local doctors, they are too old or left, whatever it is. And it's in Slovakia, but I think it's happening throughout the region that there is this process of so-called optimization of hospitals, because especially the government cannot afford to pay for so many hospitals in different places. So the idea is to optimize, which basically means reducing the number of hospitals and focusing on less hospitals, but making them more modern, high quality, etc. But then this creates a question for people in rural areas, what do we do? And there's this tension. But I think one of the leapfrogging ideas is what I think Andre was indicating, is a remote, digitally based healthcare system. So people from local communities do not have to, for every little thing, to travel and to have a doctor. That can be done remotely by providing digital remote medicine and healthcare system. So maybe this is one of the areas where some of this political tension, which is now because of this issue of physical infrastructure that is in place, and we are thinking they are always tied to physical infrastructure. We need to have a building, a hospital, a school, and so on. But a lot can be done now thanks to the digital opportunities without physical infrastructure, doing it remotely and through the digital framework. So I think, yeah, I think we need to think outside of the box and find new solutions.
There is a very good example in Scotland that gynecologists and also maternity, what they did regarding with an island, that they had the same problem, optimization of the hospital capacities, because you cannot open a hospital area in each island, and they had it from the past, because every community wants the doctor, wants the maternity as well, it's the department of that.
Yes.
They fixed it, it was a very big protest from the society first, but what was the solution? From the much less money with the helicopter goes. for every and each cases. And every each cases goes with helicopter with the most modern logistic solution behind of the system optimization. It was much less cost than just keep open for the doctor who knows that was in the last couple of years, to increase the knowledge and etc. This is very important. From the technology point of view, we have, for example, a V-scan machine, which is just a head what you can connect for an iPhone or for some other telephone, and goes to India, then for hundreds of thousands of people has no meeting with a doctor. And there are people who remotely train what they need to do with these ultrasound machines and what are the most simplest 4-5 examination what they can do it. And people who were never checked, minimum there is one check here of that. These type of things are very helpful. These type of things can bring to low cost, relatively low cost, but simplified technology needs to be in the hand of the people. And don't forget something, I fully agree with you that the government needs to give the regulatory framework. We have a shortage in Europe with GDPR, the currently available GDPR, to create a clarified data for this type of remote type of works. That's not easy. Okay, that's not easy. And I don't talking about we need to kill the last pillars or castles of privacy. Okay, but what I'm talking about to deal with the data. You are in fintech, based on the quality data. In healthcare, it's a qualified secure data. We're talking about data from the cars, from the telephones, from the cameras, from everywhere. These data, it's a huge jewel in our hand that we can deal with that data in case if the regulatory framework changes a little bit, because now in Europe, it's no favor of that. It's not the best laboratory to develop the next application for the future.
Thank you so much for that, and maybe that's yet another idea for the new tech, like how to help the governments with a more flexible legislation and scale it up to the EU level. We have about 4 minutes, 40 seconds for one last question, and I'll bring in the question from Slido that is both very practical but also very inspirational. What do you consider to be the single best technological innovation of the last 5 years and of the next 5 years? Feel free to mention any example and potential solutions that you're already working on. Anna, I can go first to you.
I'm not a futurist, but I would say artificial intelligence would really define a lot of industries, and I think it would really define a lot of processes, a lot of products, a lot of services, and it will bring humongous impact on different sectors. You said cost, but I think cost, I would say, is mobile payments. I remember the days where our alarm clock on the table was separate. We used to go for holidays and camera was separate, right? There was a calculator on the desk. Now everything is on your mobile device, right? So I think the way everything, your entire lifestyle is integrated into a mobile phone, including payments, everything else, your personal pictures, everything. I think that in the past 5 years, future, I would say artificial intelligence, and I would say open banking.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm writing them all down. Andrea, what are your examples?
Yeah, everybody's coming from the own industry, I think the telemedicine is for sure definitely on the outside. But for the future, I fully agree that artificial intelligence. I'm just telling you, we discussed about the family doctors. We have now a software in an innovation phase, which says that the most simplest way how you collect data about the patient, the artificial intelligence will give the most probably the priority list, that what are the most difficult and most probably problem of the patient. And immediately the system is send the patients to the next hospital. Done. This is not a high cost. You can go there with a very simplified device. You can go there with a very simplified checklist, but based on the checklist, the artificial intelligence is more and more data, analyze it, and give the priority, put on the priority list, and it save lives. I think artificial intelligence for sure.
That's further highlight our data problem that needs to be sorted out. Yeah. Peter.
Well, I will try to provide a half serious and half joke answer. I would say it's the COVID pandemic.
That was the same as
Well, of course, it has brought us a lot of negative effects in terms of the costs of lives, the amelioration of health of people, etc. But on the other hand, it has also supported and intrigued our thinking, our connectivity, a lot of innovative and RDI activities related to the vaccination in the medical segment, including telemedicine. So I would say that it has a lot of negativities for the humankind, but on the other hand, it has also brought a lot of thinking in our lives and new ways for our everyday lives, which were not imaginable before.
Thank you so much, Peter and Basil. Your take.
So certainly COVID did accelerate many processes which were underway, and in that way it was helpful. Unfortunately, too many lives people were lost from this, but I think the future is very much about the data. How do we manage data in an efficient way? And efficient also means from the energy point of view. And, currently, there's predictions that if we go with current level of growth of the data management centers, etc., that by 2040 they should consume or will consume around 40% of the total energy production on the planet, which is of course not affordable and not sustainable. So I think one of the next innovations, and there are some also from our region, is the new generation microprocessors, which are extremely fast. They can process the information in a very fast way. Of course, they use artificial intelligence, etc., to support elements in blockchain and so on. But they also do it with a much lower level of energy consumption. And I think this is one of the areas which are very important for the future. And I know that also in our region there are some companies which are working on this, and this could be one of the innovative elements where they will be positions.
Thank you so much. Something really amazing just happened in this panel. We finished exactly on time, which rarely happens. Thank you so much. You've been amazing speakers. We learned a lot during this panel, and I would like to thank you all for being here with us, for sharing your thoughts, and we do hope to continue the conversation with you on other occasions. I need to officially now release the speakers from the panel, but for everybody, we're very grateful for you being with us today. We had 3 interesting conversations. We did learn that, and I maybe paraphrase Anna a little bit, that if we change the way we look at things, the things will change. So I do hope that your perspective on things has changed a little bit today, and you're ready also to work on solutions to make things change. I would like also to thank all our partners who made sure that today was possible. That's of course the Ministry of Economy of the Slovak Republic, who did a fantastic job bringing us all here together and organizing the events and the conversations today. I would like, of course, to thank all the speakers who were with us at this panel, but also at the previous panel, and very importantly, the GLOBSEC team, specifically Kevin, Natalka, and Rastislav, who I don't know where, for making sure that we're all here enjoying our conversations and learning about solutions. So thank you so much, everybody. There's a dinner that's already been warmed up over there for you with the help of some technological devices. So we invite you all to enjoy the dinner and come back for more conversations also with GLOBSEC in January, where we're going to stage more discussions over similar kind later. Thank you once again and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.